Welcome to the deep dive. So, you sent us this stack of intelligence briefings and articles, and honestly, the picture they paint it's intense.
It really is.
We're not just talking about threats getting worse. It feels like a whole new definition of cyber warfare. You've got 5 years of, completely undetected data theft on one hand.
And on the other, this almost crushing attempt by regulators to mandate resilience. It's a critical conflict.
Right. We're trying to synthesize reports about these massive, global, state-sponsored data campaigns, this quiet war.
While at the same time, we're looking at these alarming domestic hurdles, specifically those struggles inside our own key U.S. defense agencies.
So our mission today is to cut through all that complexity. We want you to walk away with a really clear understanding of what matters most. We're going to dive into 3 core themes.
Pervasive espionage, the risks to critical infrastructure, and the immediate reality of mandatory compliance for anyone doing business with the government.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the campaign they've dubbed Salt Typhoon. We usually focus on what you could call the loud boom attacks.
Sure, like ransomware that shuts down a hospital or a big DDoS attack, the stuff that makes headlines.
Yeah, they demand immediate attention. But the Chinese Ministry of State Security, the MSS, they seem to favor the exact opposite. They want the smart, quiet approach.
And these documents really show why that is so potent. It's not about disruption. It's about intelligence supremacy.
So they just sneak in, stay invisible.
And harvest data, year after year. The scale of this one operation that was just confirmed is, frankly, staggering. We're talking between 2019 and at least 2024.
And how many targets?
A minimum of 200 companies across 80 countries.
80 countries. That scale is terrifying, but let's zero in on the U.S. targets. This wasn't just some low-level probe.
No, not at all. They hit the very core of American communications. I mean, think about the giants, AT&T, Verizon, and Lumen.
Which is Quest and U.S. West, for those who remember.
Right. And the sources say the actors had, and this is a direct quote, free reign inside those systems.
Free reign. And that means exactly what it sounds like.
It means access to everything. High-profile targets, ordinary citizens, you name it. The sources even mentioned they could listen to conversations involving, former president and a current vice president.
Alongside millions of other people. But what's often overlooked is that it went way beyond just the carriers.
That's a critical point. It wasn't just telcos. Victims included Digital Realty Trust.
And for anyone who doesn't know, that's a massive company. They own data centers in 25 countries, and their client list is.
It's Amazon, Google, Microsoft, NVIDIA, the biggest names. Comcast was also compromised.
So why does that expansion matter so much? What's the next level of threat there?
Well, it suggests they weren't just listening to voice calls or public internet traffic. By getting inside data center providers, they potentially got access to more private networks, to the interconnection points.
The backbone.
Exactly. The critical backbone where huge amounts of data are exchanged, completely bypassing the global internet. They weren't just observing the terrain, they were mapping it.
And crucially, the military itself got hit. Data from the Army National Guard on servicemen and women was stolen.
The most alarming detail there.
It went completely undetected for 9 months.
9 months. That's 9 months of unmitigated access. It just reinforces that their strategy is all about patience and volume.
The sources even say the volume of data they took was so immense, the MSS wasn't even sure yet how they were going to use it all.
And we know who did it. The actors were tied to 3 specific Chinese MSS vendors companies, like Sichuan Juxi Network Technology.
So Salt Typhoon is the specific name, and it fits into this whole family of operations, right? Volt Typhoon, Flax, Silk.
It's a pattern. The lesson here isn't just about the theft itself. It's that this quiet, persistent data collection gives them long-term strategic value while, minimizing the risk of a big political incident.
And that quiet war demands a really proactive defense.
A lightning-fast one. For organizations, the advice from these reports is crystal clear. You have to dramatically improve patching speed, even if it causes minor breaks sometimes.
You just have to move faster.
Exactly. And your incident response has to aim for under a minute detection. Anything more is just too slow against these adversaries.
And for you, just as an individual, the personal defense really starts with the basics. Use end-to-end encrypted messaging whenever you can.
And strengthen your authentication everywhere. The threat is global, but the defense starts with the hygiene you can control. Keeping your systems safe is super important as businesses rely more and more on digital systems, and that's where turnkey cybersecurity can really help.
Yeah, we're here to help small businesses just like yours make sure they're safe and sound in this crazy world of cybersecurity. And we offer a whole suite of services specifically tailored for you. So that's ensuring CMMC compliance and doing penetration testing. We also run vulnerability scans, and we can help you develop a comprehensive risk assessment.
And it doesn't stop there, right?
No, it doesn't.
We handle incident response, should the unfortunate happen, and we guide you through migrations like GCC. We just want to make sure your transitions are smooth and that you're secure.
It's all about peace of mind, right? You focus on what you do best, running your business, and we'll make sure that your digital world is safe and sound. Okay, so let's pivot now from that silent, invisible threat to one that is, well, very loud and very physical.
But just as strategic.
Right. The geopolitical threat to critical satellite infrastructure. China is investing heavily in research on how to disrupt things like Starlink and other satellite internet providers.
The value of satellite internet is its resilience. It's one of the few communication methods that governments find really hard to block without help from the provider.
We saw how important that was in Ukraine.
Decisively important, which, of course, makes it a primary target in any future conflict.
And the motive here seems directly tied to Taiwan. If China were to launch an assault, the first move would likely be to sever those armored undersea cables.
Which is a capability they've already demonstrated. So killing off satellite internet would be the logical next step to get a total communications blackout.
So how would they do it?
Their own research details what it would take. To effectively jam communications over a specific area, like Taiwan, they'd need a huge swarm of drones.
How huge are we talking?
Somewhere between 1,000 to 2,000 drones.
2,000 drones, that sounds enormous. But the sources seem to conclude this isn't actually a huge challenge for China to build and stockpile.
No, it's not. But here's where it gets really interesting, the defense side. If you launch a swarm that big, you can't be quiet about it.
It's the opposite of Salt Typhoon.
Exactly. This drone solution is very noisy. It would be detected instantly, and you could act on it immediately. Countermeasures are already in development.
You could try to shoot them all down, I guess.
You could, but that's messy. The more elegant solutions involve high-energy ground-based weapons, things like the Navy's Helios laser. Or, even more effectively, an EMP solution designed to just fry the electronics of all the drones at once.
So it's an arms race, a cheap bulk threat like thousands of drones versus extremely high-tech, expensive countermeasures like lasers and EMPs, volume versus directed energy.
Right, and all of these threats, the kinetic ones, the data theft, they force a defensive reaction. And that reaction is very complex regulation.
So the U.S. government is trying to build resilience by demanding transparency in all the software that runs its critical systems.
Which brings us to the first mandate, the Software Bill of Materials, or SBOMs.
We've used the analogy that an SBOM is basically an ingredients list for software, like on a food package. But let's dig into that. Why is knowing that list so critical right now?
Well, it connects directly to supply chain threats. If a bad actor slips one malicious open source component deep inside some software, you need a fast, automated way to find every single place that component exists. Without an SBOM, that's just impossible.
The trade-off is always debated, though. I mean, SBOMs are hard to generate, and some people argue that by revealing all your components, you make it easier for an adversary to attack you.
It's a valid concern, but the feds and large companies are demanding them anyway. CISA has just released new, much more detailed guidelines.
And these guidelines require a new level of detail, right? It changes the whole development process.
It does. An SBOM now has to include a component hash, a unique ID, the specific license, the name of the exact tool that was used to create the SBOM.
Even a timestamp.
And a timestamp. And developers selling to the government now have to standardize on formats like SPDX and CycloneDX. It's a foundational shift. It's mandatory transparency.
Speaking of mandatory, let's move to DoD contracting and CMMC Level 1, specifically how it relates to Federal Contract Information, or FCI.
This is an area where the devil is absolutely in the details.
Yeah, FCI itself, as it's defined in the regulations, is pretty opaque. It's info that isn't for public release, generated for the government, but it's not CUI.
Right. So the key is understanding what that actually looks like for your company on a day-to-day basis.
We need concrete examples. So FCI would include specific contract clauses, the fine print about what you're building,
Bid and proposal information, detailed invoices that show how things were delivered, and this is the critical one, project management documents.
so schedules, timesheets.
And all the project-related emails between your company and the contracting officer, all of it.
And here's the practical nightmare for anyone listening. CUI, which requires the much tougher CMMC Level 2, that might be contained within a small engineering team.
Right, it's firewalled off.
But FCI for Level 1 is everywhere. It's much broader. It affects your marketing, sales, accounting, HR, even executive management.
It's a great point. If your HR department handles payroll invoices that detail project milestones, they are suddenly in scope for mandatory security controls.
And the stakes for getting Level 1 right are incredibly high because the government has made it all or nothing.
All or nothing, no partial credit, and crucially, no plans of actions and milestones. You can't use a POA&M to say you'll fix it later.
So if you're missing a basic control like strong passwords, you are just non-compliant, period.
That no POA&M rule is really strategic. The government is signaling that this is just basic cyber hygiene. If you can't handle this, you haven't earned the right to touch FCI.
And beyond CMMC, there's still the DFARS Clause 712.
Which requires reporting cyber incidents in a tight 72-hour window, isolating malware, preserving images for the government.
But the sources highlight a new wrinkle in how they're enforcing it.
Yep.
The flow-down clause.
Yeah, the government realized that large prime contractors might meet the standards, but they often use smaller, less secure subcontractors.
Who become the weak link.
The weakest link. So now, if you fail to flow down all the required security clauses to your subs, you get a negative mark in your CPRs, the Contractor Performance Assessment System. And that directly hurts your ability to win future contracts.
Okay, so we've covered this silent, pervasive espionage. We've looked at strategic kinetic threats. We've detailed the massive burden of these compliance mandates. But who's supposed to lead the charge on all this?
That's the question.
And it brings us to the critical state of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA. So what does this all mean?
It means the agency that is tasked with protecting our critical infrastructure is, according to these sources, adrift.
Adrift.
We're talking about a serious brain drain. CISA has lost between 33% and 40% or more of its experienced staff. These are people who found better paying jobs immediately.
Leaving a huge vacuum in expertise.
To the point where even CISA admits it cannot fully accomplish the national security part of its mission right now.
And this crisis is compounded by a political stalemate. The placeholder leader, Sean Planke, his confirmation is completely stalled.
Right, because CISA is refusing to release a year-old report.
A report that apparently, and I'm quoting here, excoriated the telecom providers for really crappy security. No public accountability, so no confirmed leadership.
And our adversaries love this. The Chinese and the Russians are, frankly, thrilled that the main U.S. agency for cyber defense is hampered by both a staff exodus and political gridlock.
And while CISA struggles, all these other digital risks just keep emerging. We saw the EU fine Twitter $140 million for deceptive blue check practices.
Which was basically just verifying a credit card payment, not an identity. That sets a really strong precedent for mandatory transparency.
And software vulnerabilities just don't stop. FluentBit, it's an open source logging product.
Used by billions of containers globally.
Billions. And it was found to be vulnerable. The fix is hard, too. You have to completely rebuild all those containers.
Even brand new tech is struggling. Google's new anti-gravity AI toolkit had multiple security bugs found only 11 days after it was released.
We're also seeing this continued push and pull between privacy and surveillance. Microsoft Teams is adding an opt-in location surveillance feature.
Which, as the sources point out, often becomes mandated when your boss recommends you opt in.
Yeah. But on the defensive side, CISA did issue a strong warning on mobile app security. They specifically recommended using end-to-end encryption.
Which puts them directly at odds with the FBI, who has long pushed for backdoors. It really shows a growing divergence between agencies focused on defense versus those focused on intelligence gathering.
And finally, Congress is trying to shore up the physical layer, moving legislation to protect those critical undersea cables from China and Russia. It's a multi-front war.
So if we pull all the intelligence we've unpacked together, I think the key contrast is it's the success of the MSS's silent 5-year data theft campaign.
Stealing staggering amounts of information and going completely unnoticed.
Against the struggles of our own defense agencies, like CISA, who can't effectively enforce these necessary reforms like SBOMs and CMMC because of politics and staffing.
And the lesson from Salt Typhoon is that you can't just rely on perimeter defenses anymore. The sheer volume and quiet nature of this kind of espionage just underscores the need for those fast, proactive measures.
Rapid incident response times, quick patching, granular access controls, the basics, done well.
Which brings us to a final provocative thought, connecting all this tech to our established legal rights.
Exactly. We've seen this rapid integration of massive AI models, and these models are on a collision course with fundamental privacy laws.
Yeah.
Specifically, the right to be forgotten.
Which is codified into law in places like California. So if you, the consumer, demand that your personal information be removed from a large language model,
A right you have in law.
the model developers are very likely going to argue that it's, well, technically too hard to do.
And that raises a critical legal and technological question that will define court battles very soon. If the developers admit they can't fully control or edit an AI model once it's trained,
If they say they've created a monster, they can't edit.
will the law accept it's too hard as a valid defense against an established individual right? It's this fundamental conflict between technological scale and legal protection that we're all going to be watching very, very closely.
That is a fascinating conflict to end on, the collision of privacy law and technological reality. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into your source material. We look forward to the next one.